garden gals and guys, it's Steph with Tiny's Garden, and today I am sharing with you the seeds I am starting to sow in January. Seed starting season is here. This is the month we start. Insert happy dance now. Ooh, ooh. So I'm sharing with you what I am starting here in Zone 5B. The first thing you need to do before you do anything else is make sure you Google when your last frost date is in the spring. From there, you will count back all of the weeks up into January. I really recommend using a calendar. So for me, for example, my last frost date in the spring is May 2nd here. And so I mark on my calendar. Let's find May. In my calendar, I mark my last frost date, and then I can go back and count the weeks in the months prior, 4, 3, 2, 1 until my last frost date, and keep doing that all the way up with any other notes I have to January. 16 weeks out, 15, 14, 13, and then I write down what I'm going to sow and when so I can stay on schedule. This comes in handy throughout seed starting season because you can get a head start, mark down what you're starting when, or at least the major ones. That's what I do. And you can take notes along the season as you go. Lots of feedback is better than not so much feedback because you can take that information and apply it year to year like I've done for this year. So let's dive right in and see what seeds I'm starting this January. Number 1 is Lizzianthus. Oh, do we love this girl. She can be tough to grow, but it is doable. I'm encouraging you to grow her if you can. I know it's a little different if you're a for-profit or a flower farmer and you just want to save some time and maybe some failure on growing from seeds and just order plugs. I get that. But I do recommend if you've never tried it, just give it a go for the experience because she is worth it. First, look at these Lizzies right here. Oh, my goodness sakes alive. Whew. Absolutely stunning. So the Cool Flowers method, Lisa Mason-Ziegler in her book, she recommends starting them 12 to 16 weeks before the last frost date. On the back of the Johnny Seed packet, it says 12 to 13 weeks before the last frost date. So somewhere in there works great. I started it last year at week 15, and I'm doing the same this year because it worked really well. I had good luck with that timing, so I'm gonna do the same thing again. So for me, that will be January 16th is when I will be starting my Lizzianthus, which is right before my birthday. My birthday is the 17th, so what a great precursor to my coming of age the next day. I have 7 varieties this year that I am growing. I'll put a picture on the screen, and if I didn't grow it before, I'll put the picture from this Johnny's website so you have an idea of what it will look like. Voyage to Champagne, and this is a beauty. I did grow it last year. It is more ruffly, the Voyage Lizzianthus, than Arenas or Doublini's. It's a different structure, but the ruffles really adds a little more texture, and it's very rose-like, so beautiful. Voyage to White Improved. This is one of my favorite shots I got out of all of last year. Check out this Lizzianthus. Have you ever seen something so perfect? Voyage to White Lizzianthus. I mean, what can you say? That is perfection. Roseanne 3 Brown. This is the first one for me this year out of the 2 years that I have done it. This being my 3rd. I've never grown Roseanne Brown. So this year's the year. I'm very excited because I hear wonderful things about her, so I'm gonna see what the fuss is about. Doublini White. These are a little more miniature than the other varieties. Still very pretty. I believe I had these in my wedding bouquet actually, even though I didn't know what they were at the time. But it's a nice accent in a bouquet. Beautiful little white flowers with a slight yellow. I think it might even be the yellow stamen. Is that the correct term? Either way, really pretty flower. Voyage to Light Apricot. Again, have not grown this one yet. I did the champagne last year. Light apricot is one that I wanted. I got my hands on it. We're gonna see how she does. Arena 3 apricot. This was my favorite last year, as I said in my most recent video. Arena 3 Lisianthus. Again, gorgeous. Just beautiful. It's the prettiest color, the prettiest tone of an apricot that I've ever seen. And you just don't see something like it often. So unique and stunning. That's the winning combination. And Roseanne Black Pearl. This is also a favorite of mine. I did not grow this last year. I didn't get my hands on it, or if I did, those are the ones that didn't grow for me, and you will probably have some that don't grow for you. It's okay. Just keep working with the ones that do. And those are the varieties of Lisianthus I will be growing this year. Another thing to note about Lisianthus is there's 3 groups of them. Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3. All that means is that Group 1 is usually the first to bloom, Group 2 the second, Group 3 the third. So ideally, so you have blooms throughout the season, you're getting a little bit of all of them. And usually the group is in the name, from what I understand. Arena 3 apricot would be a 3, and Voyage 2, whatever color, would be a 2. So that's what that is. Really, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's, at least for me as a hobby cut flower grower, it's not that big of a deal. I just kind of make sure that I have all 3 groups, and I pretty much start them all at the same time. Iceland poppies. Again, this was my second favorite cut flower from last year. These are beautiful. They're incredibly cold hardy as well. And though they don't have a super long base life, they do look stunning in a vase for the time you have them. I sowed them at week 13 last year, and I'll be sowing them at week 13 again this year. When I say week 13, that means 13 weeks out from my last frost date. So for this year, that will be January 30th, the last day of the month. Now I have 3 packets total, and let me give you the down low on these. I have 2 from Floret and 1 from Johnny's. The Floret ones are Sherbet Mix and Pastel Meadows. The Johnny's one is Champagne Bubbles, and this one has been my favorite mix so far. That's the one that's in the video I just showed you that clip of. Oh, so pretty. Now, Floret's seed packets say grow 8 to 12 weeks before your last frost date, and Johnny's say 6 to 8 weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna follow both of them and see if one does better than the other, or if it's just a difference in varieties. Sometimes you will come across that where you're looking on the back of the seed packet for information about when to start growing them, and one company might say one thing and one company might say another. So you can either go with the one company or do both or trial and error. So that's what I'm doing this year. I started all of them last year on that date, and it did fine for me throughout the season. So I think starting the Floret ones on the 30th is going to be just fine. But to see the difference, I am going to start this one at the 6 to 8 week out mark as well. Another hint to note is that about 3 weeks from sowing, I am going to grow these on between 45 and 55 degrees. Now I have a little greenhouse that isn't necessarily heated, but I have a little heater I can put in there. So if the weather works with me and I can get that temperature in there to around 45 to 55 degrees, these will come out of my grow lights and into that greenhouse about 3 weeks after sowing. Because they're so cold hardy, that's where they want to grow on at. I just learned that from a book, a resource that I'm going to tell you at the end of this video, but I thought that would be important to know. So there you go. Next, we have a category of wild cards, and I'm calling these wild cards because if they don't work for me, I'm okay with it. It's not something that I love to death like Iceland poppies or Lisianthus. And the reason I'm okay with it is because these are going to be the first seeds I start in soil blocks ever. So my first round of soil blocking, these seeds are going in there. So hopefully it goes well from the start, but if it doesn't, not the end of the world. The varieties I am starting, which will be at the end of this week, so that is 3 days from today, January 13th is when I'm starting these. I am starting pansies. I've got a pansy mix from Hudson Valley Seed Company, and also a Swiss Giants blend mix from Botanical Interest. I grew both of these last year. These are seeds I've used before, and the pansies were great. They were really cold hardy.
And there's even a little bud just waiting to blossom.
I grew them at 16 weeks last year and it was fine. However, the seed packets on here do say 8 to 10 weeks is when you should start them, 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date, and that's on at least one of them. But I think I read on some seed packet last year to start them at 16 weeks because that's when I did. So again, they were fine. I'm pushing the limit a little bit. If I'm gonna practice those soil blocks on anything, it's gonna be the pansies for sure, and that's when I'm growing them, 3 days from now. Also, Erignium. I tried Erignium and the second, or I should say third one, Delphinium in winter sowing last year, and spoil alert, I am not winter sowing anymore. It has never worked well for me the past 2 years, and so these are also seeds from last year. I'm gonna give them a go because these can all be started 10 to 16 weeks before the last frost date, and what a perfect way to use more soil blocks in addition to these, get that practice in, and if they work out, even better, because they've never worked out for me before. But the Erignium variety is Blue Glitter, and the Delphinium variety is Belladonna Mix and Magic Fountains Mix. Now, technically, the Delphinium, I read that you could put this in the fridge for 2 weeks before you sow it because it wants that cold period. A reason why a lot of people will do these in winter sowing in milk jugs and set them outside. I am doing this video on January 10th. I'm filming it. I want to get these in the blocks by the 13th. So I'm pushing that. They're not going to be in for the full 2 weeks, but if you want to do probably the best move, keep them in there for longer than 3 days. Shoot for the 2 weeks. So that is very exciting because in just 3 short days, I'm gonna take a test drive with soil blocks and these varieties I just mentioned. And then that way, if I need to practice any more or tweak anything, I've got some time before I put my Lisianthus to the test, and then at the end of the month, my Iceland poppies. Now I am also going to use some seed trays, especially for the Lisianthus, because if I am a total fail at soil blocking, I want to make sure some of my Lisianthus do okay. So I'll probably do either 2/3 or 1/3 in the soil blocks, and then the rest will be in an actual seed cell tray. And I may just do the same thing with the Iceland poppies too. We'll see how my test run goes and go from there. Now, very quickly, 2 resources that I wanted to tell you about are these books that I have been using to set up my calendar, to cross-check with my seed packets about when to start each variety, each flower of seed. Specialty Cut Flowers by Dr. Alan Armitage. This has been really helpful already. This is where I got the Iceland poppies tip about after 3 weeks from being sown, they're gonna wanna grow on in a greenhouse or outdoor structure that stays around 45 to 55 degrees. Things like that, really useful information. You can look up the flower by its name, and it has a bunch of information about growing it, sowing it, etc. Great, great resource. And secondly, Cool Flowers. Of course, I have been using this as a resource as well. She is the queen of Cool Flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler. You can also look up by variety name for Cool Flowers, which means any flowers that are pretty hardy in the cold. So that's things like Lisianthus, like Iceland poppies. There's several more, just to cross-check everything on how you should be sowing it, any other tips and tricks. The refrigeration about the Delphinium, I think I might have gotten that from here. Either way, even if I didn't, this is a great resource for Cool Flowers and growing them. But that is it for this video, everybody. I hope that was helpful, especially if you're in Zone 5B on what maybe you will be starting this month as well. And you can trade notes with me and see if there's anything else. Please comment below and let me know what else you're starting, if I'm missing anything. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, to follow along with all things garden. That's it, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. And it is here. The time has come. Happy planting this month. See ya. Bye.